This is The Final Word, New Zealand, Australia Daily, Wellington, Day 2. Adam Collins, Jeff Lemon, show brought to you by CBUS Super. We are staring directly into the Earth's sun now for maybe another 30 seconds before it dips over the roof as another day fades into oblivion, the endless cycle tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Adam, tell us about what happened today in the space of 30 seconds.
Australia resumed at 9 for 279 and remarkably added 108 runs in an extended first session. Cam Green unbeaten, 174. Josh Hazlewood, 22. The partnership of 116, record-breaking for the final wicket. New Zealand lost 3 wickets with the score on 12, 2 further wickets with the score on 29, 2 further wickets with the score on 70-something. They lost them in clumps. A chaotic run out with Kane Williamson. They were all out for 176. They did not enforce the follow-on. At 204, leaders become 217 by the close, but Australia have lost Smith and Labuschagne for 0 and 2 respectively.
Classic New Zealand versus Australia stuff. You come in, you're level pegging, maybe a bit ahead on day one, and everything goes so badly wrong.
Yeah.
100. I thought it was 115 I've had in my head all day, and now it's 116, which is fine.
I mean, it's entirely possible that you're right and I'm wrong.
No,
here.
I'm not posing that on the basis that I'm right. It would be interesting if I've been saying the wrong thing all day, which would also be funny. Either way, it doesn't matter. Who makes a century partnership for the last innings? Not many people, that's who. This was the 28th time in Test history that it's happened today. It doesn't happen very much for a reason, because usually the number 11 is not very good. That's how things work. That's how cricket teams are structured. And so what is more annoying than being a fielding team and then watching the 10th wicket partnership put on 100 runs? But New Zealand didn't help themselves. They rock up today. Josh Hazlewood hasn't faced. He has to face the first over. He defends it quite nicely. That's fine. And then they immediately go, what was it, 8 on the fence and a slip?
Straight away.
For the first ball that
ball
Cameron Green
faces.
faces today. Now, if you've watched this show, if you've watched any cricket involving Australia over the last 4 years, you would have a reasonable idea that Cameron Green is not the best starter. He's a bit slow sometimes, he's a bit nervous, he's not quite sure what to do. If you say to him, okay, everybody's back on the fence and you can just play whatever shot you want and it doesn't matter, and you almost have no way of getting out unless you miss a straight ball, does that make his job easier? Yes, it does. Like, it was so bizarrely defensive. It was shit tactics. It was, I was actually quite annoyed seeing them go to that immediately. Like, yes, that's an option. You can have that in your kit bag in Test cricket. You can go to that if you want to try to get the 11 on struck. But to just go right from the start of the day, we're not going to bother putting some slips in, trusting our faster bowlers to see if we can get an edge and finish this off quickly. It was stupid. It was self-defeating, and they paid a price for it.
Also, like with the milk to strike game where you have 8 out and do the umbrella thing, we've actually seen recently what's more effective than that, bowling at blokes' heads. And without wanting to be too crude about it, they didn't do enough of that. They didn't do enough of the bowling because they don't have, with the exception of O'Rourke, no one's got the wheels for it. Henry's not that kind of bowler. Southey isn't as quick as he used to be, to put it mildly. Kugelheim had some issue yesterday, only bowled a few overs today. And Ravindra, look, the man most likely, and only bowled, I think, 4 or 5 overs in that spell, 7 in total for the innings after picking up Cummins yesterday. So, yeah, it wasn't particularly inventive. I felt sorry for Tom Latham. He was shadow batting for the whole 140 minutes, waiting for the chance to go out and open. It would have been a weird day to warm up for. You know, if you're in the fielding side there, 9 down, if you're an opening bat, in all probability, more often than not, you're batting inside the first half an hour. Latham had to wait till after lunch, and he's having a rough trot as it is, and he eventually plays one on from the toe of his bat. He's the first of those 3 wickets to fall with the score on 12, and thus opens New Zealand up. But yeah, it was slightly chaotic. I don't think they bowled especially badly after the first 40 minutes. I thought they bowled badly in the first 40 minutes. I think they actually recovered the situation a little bit. But by that point, the horse had bolted. Your point before, Cameron Green had played himself in. Hazlewood had a chance to play himself in as well. He faced exactly half the balls that Green faced this morning. They did the milk to strike game from their end perfectly. A moment of controversy, might come back to it in the Hall of Fame as it relates to when they kind of crossed and went back and so on, albeit controversial for about 30 seconds. But
it was almost without blemish after. So the first, so Hazlewood faces 2 overs. He faces the first and the third over of the day in their entirety, and then from that point on, Green is able to get a single from either the 4th, 5th, or 6th ball. Usually, he wasn't really doing it off the 4th. It was kind of funny that Hazlewood had to be the one to enforce it. Green kept trying to take runs, and Hazlewood was like, "No, it is the 3rd ball of the over. We're not going to do that." Oh yeah, right, okay, sorry, and back he'd go. But Hazlewood ends up facing 1 to 2 balls and over at most, and then Green starts getting into gear to hit 6s. 3 overs in a row where he lumps a 6 over the leg side, and they were bowling short at him, just not short enough, because it wasn't head hunting, it was sternum hunting, and he was just able to sit back and pump the odd one over the leg side and then find a single and keep the strike. So there's three. There's a Henry over, then an O'Rourke over, then a Henry over again, where he smacks them for 6. Then they kind of settle down into the rhythm a bit. Hazlewood has that over off O'Rourke where he hits 2 boundaries. Very little attacking stuff. Hazlewood didn't play many shots, but he has that sort of square drive behind point and then a drive through the covers. And then they bring up the 50 partnership with the first of those. And that's within the first hour. And then they get to drinks. And it's like, well, who thought that Hazlewood would still be batting at drinks? This was the highest score he's made since 2016.
Oh, I saw 21 came up in 19, so I didn't think about 22, but hadn't made it the double figures for 3 years either. So, there is something going on there with him being able to just draw down on whatever it was that used to make him quite a dependable number 9 or 10.
He averaged 47 after his first 5 test matches.
Right, there you go. And I always remember the 30-90 he made at Dominica, which will probably remain his test highest score. But that cover drive out towards the museum stand was Lara-esque. It was beautiful in its execution. So Hazlewood
Bendemeer that he came from? Did they used to call
Bendemeer bullets.
Bendemeer Lara.
Bendemeer Lara, right. They should do that.
I reckon that popped up for a little bit because he made 32 not on debut as well in Brisbane, where he belted 7 boundaries in his 32. Yeah. And then he made another 20 odd in his third test at Kingston, in the second test of that series, and after he'd made the 39 in Rousseau. So, he actually contributed quite a few useful scores in his first 4 or 5 tests.
Contributed with the ball as well, picking up Ravindra. Now let's go to New Zealand's batting. So I've mentioned Latham already.
I've just also touched on Cameron Green, 174.
Oh, sorry, I thought
hell of an innings.
Let's go back to we'd had one swing. Let's have a second swing on that. It's going to make the guy right. We spoke a little bit about Australian number 4s last night. The fact that he's been able to do it on a surface that continues to give a bit to every bowler who's in there. Nathan Lyon had it turning square from ball 1 today. So this is no road, far from it. It's also not a minefield. That the divots on the pitch aren't like, as Jeremy said, they're not. What did he say? They're not scallops. They're not to the point where you can. If you hit the Spock right now, it's not going to go low or take off like it did at the Gabba a couple of years ago in that Australia-South Africa Test match. But
scallops with the lots of flavour on top.
Yeah, potato cakes. But no, the pitch is providing enough to bowlers of all persuasions, and in that context, Green being able to do what he did yesterday with wickets falling around him and having new partners on the reg, keys in the bowl stuff with the Australian lower order. And then today to have the maturity to bat with Hazlewood the way that he did, whole different skill set.
Always
to do it with
get
number
to the
10
clinic.
And number 11.
Just PSA, just make yourself regular at the clinic. Doesn't hurt. Get it checked out. That's all.
That's a Jeff
Better for
public
everybody.
service announcement.
Better for everybody.
And cliched as it is, coming of age innings, and it is though. Like he'll be able to look back at this, the muscle memory of doing it like this in tough. Tell you what, he's going to bat on far easier surfaces than this through his Test career. A little bit like when he made those runs at Gaul 2 years ago.
Yeah,
was it 74 or something like that? He went to India thinking. And he didn't play the first couple of tests there, but when he got here, he's like, I can do this.
Yep.
I have the ability to play against the spinning ball in tough conditions.
Yep.
And so it'll be the next time that he rocks up and there's a pitch doing something on day one. He's like, I have got the experience and the memory that I am good enough to do this thing. It's kind of why I'm not too worried about Labuschagne, like zooming out here and jumping fast forward at the same time. Labuschagne's missing out routinely at the moment, but he knows he can do it at that level. And you don't forget how to do it. He's just having an extended rough trot from when he made the 100 at Manchester last year and a couple of 50s in the home summer that he wasn't able to convert. Now a run of low scores. With Labuschagne, he'll always know deep inside that he is good enough at this level. So, and that's a hurdle that Green is now clearing more regularly than he was before.
100-run partnerships for the 10th wicket. One of the biggest rounds of applause for the day when they went past Glenn McGrath and Jason Gillespie's 114. The famous 114 from the Gabba to score Australia's highest 10th wicket partnership against New Zealand. Fine. There weren't many bigger for Australia, so I said 28 all up, 100 partnership stands. 15 were bigger than what they made today. The biggest is James Anderson and Joe Root, the 198 that they put on. When was it? 2014. Second biggest is Agar and Hughes, the 163 at Trent Bridge from 2013. So it was a good year for big 10th wicket partnerships. But in terms of Australian 10th wicket partnerships, only 3 bigger. Agar and Hughes, obviously, at the top of that. The big ship and Reggie Watt in 1902.
A couple of story time faves there from yesteryear.
They put on 120 in the second test of 5. That one I think doesn't really count because that was an inverted batting order. They were playing on a sticky dog, and obviously Warwick Armstrong wasn't a number 11, but they put the bowlers up to bat in the middle order.
Do you have the technical skills to drop in Warwick Armstrong style? You got that club in the bag?
I do not think, certainly not in a video sense. We don't have a video made up for it. We should have a video made up for it. Maybe I'll work on that. It is one of the great hits that we've come up with on the final word, thanks DC. And the other one, it was 1924, the 4-1 Ashes thrashing. So in the first test of that, in the third innings, Arthur Mailey and Johnny Taylor put on 120. Right. That was a timeless test. So they were well ahead on the first innings, and they were like, fuck it, let's just bat them to death. Okay. And so they did. They just batted for as long as they possibly could. So yeah, only 3 bigger 10th wicket partnerships for Australia after in front of what they did today.
I'm glad I know that. New Zealand's batting. Okay, let's go. We'll start with Latham. Feel for him for all that we talked about before then. Bottom of the bat. It's not as though he was playing extravagantly. It was a defensive shot.
Tucked in tight.
It's just one of those things that can happen sometimes.
Yeah. It was always hard to work out what happened. I was watching that from ground level, and it and all the Australians went up and were like, hang on, was he being caught behind? And I was like, middle stump looks a little funny. I think he's been bowled.
He didn't have his defences crash through necessarily. No. It was the aid of the ball bouncing before it hit the stump on the way back up.
It wasn't a boom crash opera kind of situation.
Let's get the run out in a sec. I thought Ravindra's shot was an absolute shocker. I mean,
wide, full,
they've lost 2 wickets with the score on 12, and Hazlewood feeds him out there. Great catch from Nathan Lyon, just after the drama of the Will Young, Kane Williamson run out, which we'll come to now. But Ravindra...
Almost a terrible catch, because Lyon's mid-air. Like, he's anticipating it going way further to his right, and he's already taken off, and then he's like, uh-oh, I have no control over my body, and I have to somehow get my hands in front of my stomach rather than out to my side and catch the ball with both feet off the ground, which he did.
You could say he made it look harder than it was. Like when Stephen Kernahan would take a mark, then do like several rolls before.
He made it harder. It was hard. It looked hard because it was hard, but he made it more difficult and then somehow pulled it off anyway.
I wonder if Stephen Kernahan really did that, or whether I just built it up in my mind over 30 years.
It was just weird resentment of a rival club captain.
Sometimes it's hard to be a woman. Those who know. Right, where are we? So the run out. There's a few bits here, isn't there? First of all,
bad.
I admire Mitchell Starc for wanting to just double check it wasn't his fault. So Starc walked quite a way up. He wasn't willing to celebrate till he knew it wasn't his reason.
Right.
So he wanted to establish that he hadn't accidentally tripped someone up.
Right.
Talk about spirit of cricket stuff. I think had he been responsible for it, he would have been willing to have said, hang on a minute here. So just want to note that on the way through. Bad running, but also unlucky. Also unlucky running. Like Young plays the ball in such a way that he has to.
It's Williamson who plays the ball.
Sorry, my apologies. Williamson plays the ball, and Young's trying to avoid the ball. So that's why he goes on the inside rather than the outside, which typically you go on the outside if you're the non-striker, right?
If you're watching the video, Adam's doing the hokey pokey right now.
Young had to do the nutbush, which we learnt last night in the pub.
Well, we learned that we still know it last night.
Well, first of all, we learned in the pub we still know how to do it, but also that it's not a thing anywhere but Australia.
Purely Australia.
How's that possible?
The spiritual home of Tina Turner is Australia for some reason.
How is the nut push not a thing in the States?
We truly are Rugby League Island, the whole continent.
Can't wait till Vegas gets going in a couple of days, or maybe it's happening already. Find out on the front of the paper, not the back of the paper.
Who's winning on the tables? Yeah. Right. So
I felt there was an unlucky bit to this. That he had to run. He couldn't go. What's that line in?
We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We're going to have to go through it.
Have to go through it.
We're going on a
Squish, squash, squit. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one.
So
we're not scared.
Incidentally, if you're a parent of small children, why are you trying to catch a bear? That is an irresponsible use of your parenting time.
How sad is the last page of that book?
I don't know.
So the last page of that book, after they get into the bear's cave, the bear shits himself when he sees them, but they run away and go back and hide under the covers, and the bear just desolate, walking away like, oh,
what have I done?
Oh, I thought I found a friend, and they've just run away.
Oh.
Why did they leave me?
Oh, okay.
It's a genuinely moving final page. The illustration, is it Julie Donaldson, I think, who illustrated the book?
Mate, I think you've been sucked in here by the lobby of Big Bear, who are like, yes, come into our caves and then stay. Don't run away. Crunch, crunch, yum, yum. Right, I'm going to describe the run out in case people didn't see it and they're listening to the podcast. So Williamson drives to mid-off, sets off for a run. Mitchell Stark's bowling, so he's a left armer, which means that Young is on the off side of the pitch where normally he'd be on the on side of the pitch. Right, so normally the two batters would be on opposite sides of the pitch, no problem, no drama. And Stark sets off after the ball, which means he moves directly into the path of the lane the two batters are going to use. And they're close to each other, so they head off and they both try to run on the pitch side of Stark rather than one of them going around. And then they do the fake out thing when you're approaching someone on the street and you go to your right and they go to their left and you go, oh, sorry, and then you go back the other way and you go, oh, sorry. But they do that, but they crash into each other. And then Williamson ends up trying to go around Stark and he's well short. And the stumps are thrown down. Labuschagne throws them down direct. Yeah, he's improved out of sight as a fielder. So
he executed 4 direct hits in 2022, and New Zealand would know that. So you know that's the other parts of this. Don't take on Marnus Labuschagne.
Taking on the best fielder.
One of the best dead-eye dicks in world cricket.
Here's the thing. I reckon Williamson's short anyway. Even if Stark's not there, and even if Young's not there, and even if he's got a clear sprint, I reckon he's probably short as it is. And so we'll all concentrate on the collision. But it was just bad calling. Yes. And Young was ball watching. He was looking over his shoulder, which he shouldn't have been doing. But still, it was a dire mistake. You take a guy who's made 700s in his last 7 Test matches, and you run him out second ball. He runs himself out second ball. What a waste. You know, like it's like someone pulling out the vintage Grange or whatever from their cellar and then just smashing it on the patio steps. It's like, we wanted to enjoy that. The reception he got from the crowd coming out, and then they were just silent when he came back in.
Yeah, treating a bottle of Grange like the goon bagging wheel of...
Goon of Fortune.
Goon of Fortune. That's right.
Fortune.
Maybe we should play that. We've got a couple of days off here.
Anyone got a Hills hoist? If you know somebody in Wellington with a Hills hoist clothesline, we need a rotary clothesline and a 5-litre foil bag of Fruity Lexia.
They might have invented the Hills hoist in New Zealand. Did we take that from them?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe Crowded House invented it with Fowler.
Russell Crowe invented it.
In order to mix a pavlova.
Go Rusty, go.
We've given Russell Crowe back, though. We claimed him when he won the Oscar, and then when he hit the guy with the phone, we gave him back.
Just tell a quick story here. When there was a comparison made to a traffic accident in the tunnel up there when the run out happened before, and I reflected on...
That's probably inappropriate.
Well, it was
comparison.
more like, when you see two cars run into each other. And I did think about when we nearly met our maker at that tunnel in 2016. Do you remember what happened that day, Jeff?
We don't need to go into
that. Okay,
right.
Anyway.
Look, we're still here. Everyone's still here. It's fine. So that happens. Ravindra goes soon afterwards. Williamson, second ball. Ravindra, third ball. Mitchell, finally, he defends for a while, pulls 1-4, and I'm like, oh, he's on here. And then he pokes at Cummins, and he's caught.
Good setup from Cummins.
Yeah, caught for 11.
Gee, did Cummins give, Cummins coming on first change when it seems under the pump, that's ridiculously difficult at the best of times, but didn't concede a run till his 15th ball or something like that. Mitchell gets him away, but it's that classic, fourth stump line where he digs his trench, and he just gives nothing away, back of a length, to just adjust his length on that same trench, and then he goes a little tempter, and Mitchell can't help himself, and the rest is history.
Yep, and Will Young tickles one down the leg side. Just quietly, I know I've said this before, but I'm sick of people saying you're unlucky if you get caught down the leg side. If you drive outside off stump and nick the ball, you're not unlucky. No one says that. Why, if you try to play a leg glance and you play it badly and nick the ball, why are you unlucky? You're not unlucky.
It's
played a bad shot.
It's a moral failing as a bowler to get a player caught down the leg side.
Right, I see.
It's like if you miss leg stump on the projection. It's missing leg stump. It's a shit ball. It's missing leg stump.
Awful. Missing leg stump by half a centimetre. If it was missing off stump by half a centimetre, you're a genius. Anyway, they're 5 for 29 at that point. 29 for 5. They're screwed. Blundell and Phillips come in, and they put on 84, and that was fun. That was pure ball striking stuff. Love Glenn Phillips. Just so entertaining to watch. Mostly along the ground. He wasn't doing white ball slogging. He was scorching off drives and cover drives. Again, I was watching that down here, and the people are just obligatory going, shot. He gets to 50 at faster than a run a ball in the situation they were in. I mean, what an innings.
Here's the next crime against, I was going to say humanity, against cricket. Lost 3 wickets with the score on 12. Phillips brings up his half century. Next ball, Blundell, who batted really well, by the way. A couple of those square drives to die for, one through the covers as well. Looked like they were ready to put on a big partnership. By that stage, they put on 84, and people were starting to believe. When New Zealand reached 50, there was a Bronx cheer. When they reached 100, it was hands above the head clapping. The crowd on the hill here believed they were going to mount this rear guard, and they may not take first innings points, so to speak, but they'll get near enough, they'll still be in the game of cricket. But Lyon, who was turning them from ball one, doesn't quite get far enough forward. Blundell caught it short leg. It's a classic off-spinner's wicket. Cougar Line 2 balls later is a dreadful bit of batting from a guy who averages 27, 4 first-class hundreds, 1 this year, 1 against Australia A last year. Second ball, trying to plonk Nathan Lyon out towards the monuments over there, and not sensing the game situation, needing to get himself in, trying to take on Lyon, who's already turning the ball as prodigiously as that. It was such a high-risk option.
Yep.
So a second wicket falling on that score for the third time in the innings, as I mentioned before, multiple wickets on one score. And that just completely ends any opportunity New Zealand have got of being competitive today. It was just dreadful batting. And I know he's not there for his batting, strictly speaking, but he's not there either. The fact that he's made runs and the fact that he's been able to contribute at the lower levels for New Zealand and have that first-class average, you've got to play your role, especially when he hasn't been able to do an awful lot of heavy lifting with the ball because he picked up a niggle yesterday.
Good. Second ball duck, piss off. Didn't want to see you bat anyway. And then there's the bit with Henry and Phillips. They put on 48 together in quick time. Henry was like, look, all I know how to do is try to hit sixes, so I'll just keep doing that. Worked out pretty well for him today. Phillips is actually the one who gets out first. He hooks down to fine leg. I mean, he's got to play shots at that point. Really takes on Hazlewood, takes the catch. Phillips 71.
Just on Phillips quickly. Just really quickly on him to finish off on that. We've whinged a lot about Australia not always utilising their best white ball skills in red ball cricket, Glenn Maxwell, etc., especially Glenn. It's Phillips, right? New Zealand have said white ball gun might work, does a few different things really well. Excellent fielder, rags his off breaks, and bats down at 6 or 7 and bats at a run of ball.
Imagine having a player who could do all three of those things.
Quite.
And picking them in a test team.
And I'm glad Phillips is getting the opportunity, and hopefully he gets an extended run in the way that Maxwell didn't.
Yep, that's it. So, he's out for 71. They're 8 for 161 at that point. Southey, no shot. Fired, caught it short leg for 1.
Good catch.
Yeah, Henry.
Great catch, actually.
Travis Head, one-hander. It was off the pad, so it wasn't going that quickly, but he's
just the way
able
he
to stick his
sensed it.
hand
Went
out.
with the spin, didn't he? Yeah.
Henry gets caught at deep mid-wicket for 42 after bashing a few more. 179 all out. They're 204 behind. Could have enforced a follow-on, didn't. Which I thought fair enough because the quicks would have been third spell at the start of that innings. Right. And so, why not take a bit of time, give them a couple of sessions off. And I think they want to try to finish this in 4 days, though, because weather on Sunday and whatever. So they don't want to bat like 2.5 sessions tomorrow.
Weather on Sunday, and as Alex Malcolm's written the last couple of days, there's 2 courses they fancy here, not just one. There's Royal Wellington and there's the other one over behind the governor's mansion over there. So
try to be done tomorrow.
Watch this space. Some of them will probably be thinking about whether they have the ability to wrap it up in 3, although that would take a lot. That probably requires bowling them out in 40 overs again tomorrow, as they did today. Smith chopping on, occupational hazard. Didn't read it off the pitch from Southey. Southey gets 2.
Probably doesn't need to be booming drives with 5 overs to go in the day.
But as I say, it is what it is when you're opening the batting in Test cricket and you're not set. That'll happen against the new ball. Don't think it's panic stations. He carried his bat 2 innings ago and had a partnership of 61 yesterday that went deep into the first session, which is fundamentally your job as an opener. Labuschagne we touched on before, and Nathan Lyon copped a whack
down the leg side.
Nathan Lyon copped a whack late on the hip flexor. We asked him about it later. It just stung him. It was one of those that hurt at the time, but he'll be fine tomorrow.
Disappointing they didn't take the option to have Cam Green bat twice on the same day, just to flex over New Zealand. Be like, remember this guy? He was batting until after the scheduled lunch break.
Sure.
Here he is again by stumps. Remember him?
All right, Jeff, I think it's time that we advance to the Final Word Hall of Fame. Final Word Hall of Fame is brought to you by CBUS Super, cbussuper.com.au. You know about their returns. What we should also remind you of is their profound history, that 40 years ago they saw a problem and they found a solution. BUS is what it was called originally, where the unions in the middle of an industrial dispute worked with the employers and they bargained, they sorted it out, they found the model which would be the bedrock of industry super, with trustees from both the employer side and the employee side working in tandem to ensure that retirement savings wouldn't be a hit or miss thing, and it wouldn't be relying on the pension, that people could put money away with support from their employer through their careers and then retire with dignified retirement savings. CBUS are at the forefront of that with their pioneers at the start. So this is a fund that's been there from the start. cbussuper.com.au. Get your super sorted out today. Let us know if you want some help with an introduction. Their past performance brilliant as it is not a reliable indicator of future performance. It's our moment of the day, Jeff.
Right, Hall of Fame. My Hall of Fame for me today is the Wellington crowd. Knowledgeable crowd here. No, it's just a lovely crowd. I spent a lot of time today when I wasn't on air, I was coming down in the breaks to sit down at ground level and just hang out. Ran into Citrus Bob down here, who's over having a jolly.
Terrific.
Can't fit in the press box because there's about 8 seats in there, so not necessarily tailored for the larger touring packs, of which I wouldn't even say the Australian one is large. But
did you talk the cats with him?
With a little bit cats talk. There's always a bit of something you can
always
catch
a bit
on.
Let me tell you about
Polly
your grandson.
How'd Polly Farmer go in 1963? But the point is that everything was lovely. I had some nice conversations with people, sort of sitting around who would chat about this player or that player, and we were all having a good time. The bit I liked the most is when Scott Kugelund came out to bat. Shouldn't be here, doesn't deserve the honour of playing for his Test country. No one cheered him, no one applauded him. He got the most muted response I've ever heard for a home player. There was, a bit of a burble, but most people were like, don't feel too good about this. So I thought, fair play Wellington crowd. I like you.
They've been paying attention. Speaking of the crowd on the other side of it, the streaker, who just kind of dawdled out from out the front of the UN Chatfield Pavilion, found an opening, ran on, didn't sprint on, went over to Nathan Lyon. I don't think he was too impressed. Had his old boy out, this guy. He was proper streaking.
Full
and if you're going to streak,
bottle.
you got to streak. You can't wear trousers or you can't just run on. You're duty bound to do the thing properly.
Sure.
And then the guy who eventually caught him, Barat found that guy, the guy with the long beard and all the rest of it. And the conversation Barat had with him was to the effect of, "Oh, no one else is going to get him, so I want to take him to the ground." But I didn't want to get too close, basically. So they ended up covering him up while they about 8 of them took him off the ground. My thought at the time, by the way, was if every security guard or every marshal is over there. Frog March.
Tommy Lee Jones, US Marshal. That's a perfect time for another one.
Isn't that the best time? Isn't that the best time?
That's how you do it. You get 10 of your friends to wait back, and then you all go on.
There we go.
So I'm going to say the security guard who got him wasn't that great to get. The guy had already gone to ground. He was trying to crawl under the tackle, and so he was already flattened, and he was totally out of breath. He'd run like 80 metres across the ground. He was stuffed. He was like, I got nothing left. I'd like to see a good, Rugby League Ireland style player go out there and just embarrass 20 security guards. Just sidestep them, palm off, use the skills, use the full space in the field. You've got to have that vision at the corner of your eye. What's coming next?
The old don't argue, as I used to say. So streaker, I saw a chap in the crowd.
Like to see a streaker dressed as Heath Streaker.
Yeah, I saw a chap in the crowd. This is not funny. It's just something you see. It was a bit jarring. He was watching a funeral on his iPhone. That's a thing now. Went to a funeral recently.
You get links,
and he was just plugged in watching a funeral whilst in Basin Reserve watching cricket, which just struck me as noteworthy. As did the fact that when
I hope you do that for me one day.
Yeah, I'll sit at the cricket watching your send off. The cricket ground DJ when New Zealand were absolutely stuffed at their change of innings, all out 1-7, 4 or 6 or whatever I said before, playing like Slice of Heaven from start to end, like real upbeat sort of Dave Dobbin. Wasn't really.
That's what everyone in New Zealand needs. Another spin of Slice of Heaven.
Well, where's the exponent spin, by the way?
Yeah.
I don't know, why does love do this to me? They play that at every All Blacks game. They play it when New Zealand are playing T20 cricket.
Yep.
If you're listening, Cricket Ground DJ, I want to hear it tomorrow.
We need to end this show. It is too long already.
Oh, so it is, yes.
Yeah.
It's CBUSSuper.com.au. Yep. We'll be back tomorrow. We're off to meet our final word listeners.
Yeah, we are. By the time you see this, it may not be too late actually. If you're in Wellington, get on down to Bristol Hotel.
Bristol Hotel.
Right. Final word. New Zealand, Australia, daily, day 2. Wellington, Jeff Lebanon, Adam Collins. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.